Hello everyone, happy Tuesday. It's time for another episode of Tuesday Live at 5. This is Lena Gersa. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Cambridge, Ontario, Canada. And today I am so excited to share with you 3 beautiful projects featuring the Sun Prints suite from the Stampin' Up! 2022-2023 annual catalog. Now this suite is one, when I first saw it, I kind of thought, okay, it's pretty, but I already have similar stamp sets and similar dies, and the paper's nice, but it's not a must-have for me. Well, how wrong I was. This happens to me every time, right? You start using things, you start seeing projects by other demonstrators or other stampers online, and suddenly you have to have it. Well, that's what happened with me. And so I started playing with this suite over the weekend, and I came up with 3 projects, 2 of which actually are in a different color scheme from the blues and the grays in the suite. So the suite is gorgeous. The paper is gorgeous. I'm going to show it to you, and we're going to use it on our last project, but I have 2 projects I'm going to share with you that use a different color palette because it's so versatile. That's what I love about this suite. So let me see who is joining us. Now, I'm just going to give you guys a heads up. I have a wicked headache today. I've had it like all day. It's been interesting being a music teacher with a wicked headache in the heat all day. But I think the heat is partly responsible for my headache, that and not enough sleep. So if I'm seeming like I'm squinting, it's because the light actually hurts my eyes right now. And I also, if I start to not make a whole lot of sense or I'm like mismeasuring and whatnot, that's why. Okay, I just want to kind of throw that out there so that you guys know what's going on with me. So who have we got? We've got Laura and Penny and Chris. Hi, Violet. Hi, Debbie. Hope you all are well and keeping cool. We are just under a heat warning. They just announced that just before I went live. So stay cool wherever you are. And I gotta say, even though it's hot, I don't complain because our long winters are so long here. So the heat is welcome. All right, I'm gonna flip the camera and we are going to get going. I'll show you the suite and then we'll get to some stamping. So here we go. Nope, my lamp's in the way. We will get that out of the way in just a second. There we go. That should help. Oh, raining in Edmonton, is it, Debbie? We had quite a bit of rain over the weekends here, but now it's hot. It feels like July. Okay, so here we go. There is more to the suite, but these are kind of the products that I'm going to be focusing on today. So starting, of course, with the bundle. The bundle is always the centerpiece of a product suite, and this is no different. So we have the beautiful stamp set. Okay, we've got some stamped sort of floral images and greenery. Best spatter stamp ever, and then some really fantastic fonts in the sentiments. Absolutely love the sentiments in this set. And then we have the coordinating dies. So several of the dies cut out the stamped images. You're going to see those in action today. But then we also have several dies that cut out shapes. So we have a wreath, we've got some vines, we've got some little sprigs of leaves. And then we have a fantastic label. I've used this label a ton already. I love the shape of it. And believe it or not, all of these sentiments fit in this label, which is fantastic. So that is the bundle. And then, of course, we have this gorgeous DSP. Now, if you are not a fan of blue, then this suite may not, or this paper may not appeal to you, but it's gorgeous paper. And if you don't like this paper, there's a whole other pack with similar patterns, but with different colors that might appeal to you more. So that's the beauty of this suite. So in this one, we've got this sort of fern pattern. We've just got a textural one. This one's like dandelions. We're actually going to use this sort of panoramic image today. Fabulous spatters, some sprigs, and then when we flip them over, we have a little bit more blue, but we also have lots of gray granite, which is fantastic. So we've got a stripe. Love this wash. Looks like a cloudless sky. Some great texture on this one. That one's upside down. There we go. Some vines and some more dandelions. So a really great sort of natural print suite that is great for cards for anybody, right? Masculine cards, sympathy cards. You're going to see a couple samples that I'm going to do that would work for even wedding thank you. So lots of possibilities for this suite. So let's get that out of the way and get some stamping. Okay. Oh, we've had some more people join. Let's just see who else is here. Hi, Pam. Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it. Hi, Connie. Hot there too. Yeah, it is hot, I think, across most of the continent this week. All right, so first card we're going to make is this one. So I mentioned 2 out of our 3 projects today we're going to be in alternate color palettes. Not because I don't like blue and white, but because I feel like there has been so much blue and white floating around with this suite that I wanted to show some different takes on it and show a little bit more versatility. So this one I think would be a beautiful wedding card. I think it's just lovely. Best wishes and happy thoughts is a great sentiment for a couple who is starting out their lives together. So we are going to get started with this one. I'm going to show you an embossing folder that you probably, not necessarily, but probably missed in the annual catalog. So this embossing folder is called Twigs and Sprigs. It is a lovely 3D folder, really deeply etched images, and it's actually a hybrid folder, meaning that there is a coordinating die that cuts out all of these little shapes. So you may be able to see in my folder, you can see the outline around the shapes. So the die basically just locks in there, you put your cardstock in, run it through, and you can cut out embossed twigs and sprigs, or you can just use it as a standard embossing folder like I've used here. Okay, so that's the embossing folder. We're actually going to soften the green. So I wanted soft succulent, but I didn't want it to be quite so dark. So we're going to add a little bit of white craft ink. Now I don't often use this in videos because it does take a little bit longer to dry, but we're going to take our chances and see what happens. So craft ink is a thicker ink. It does involve a little bit more dry time, which is why you don't see me using it very often in videos. I'm not the most patient of stampers, but it is an opaque ink, which looks fantastic on colored cardstock. And so I'm just applying it with a blender brush. It is water-based, so it will wash right out of my brush, no problem. I don't have to worry about, you know, it almost looks like the consistency of paint when you apply the re-inker to your ink pad. And you may think, oh my goodness, what is this stuff? But it is water-based ink, and it does create this really cool sort of whiteout or whitewash effect. So you can see that I'm just applying ever so lightly with my blender brush. I'm not applying a whole lot of pressure because I really just want to hit, for the most part, those raised images in the embossed pattern. So I'm just gonna, again, you want to go in a circular motion. Ideally, you want to start off of your cardstock so you don't get a big white blob when you put your brush down. And we're just going to apply a little bit more. I'm not going to take too much time across the bottom part because we're not going to see much of that. That's going to get covered up. But there we go. So we've just added that little hint of white. On my sample, I was quite a bit more heavy-handed, and I actually like this look better. This one I feel like is too much white. So I did a better job on this. Second time's the charm, right? Okay. Hi, Jill. Hot in Northeast Ohio, too. Yep. Hi, Krista. So that is our background. Now, because I sponged this, this isn't going to take too long to dry because I haven't used a whole lot of ink. On this one, where I used quite a bit more, it actually took probably 20 minutes for that ink to set up. Okay, so it does take a little bit longer. You can speed it up with your heat tool, and that will, you know, kind of get things moving a little bit. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and stamp our sentiment strip. So I have here, this is, let's see, I have my grid paper with the measurements underneath. So this is a 1x4 inch strip of basic white. And I'm going to bring in my sentiment stamp. Best wishes and happy thoughts. We're going to stamp that on in Evening Evergreen. Now, I just re-inked this pad, so yeah, you see. I was going to say I have to go really light with this because it's a very juicy pad. And lo and behold, I didn't catch myself in time. So let's just ink that up, make sure we're good. And then I want to stamp this up towards the right side of my folder here. Now I am going to do a test because I think, if I remember correctly, yes, this was mounted crooked. Not Stampin' Up's fault, entirely mine. So I need to just make sure that I stamp this a little bit off, and look at that, it's perfect. Okay, so grid paper is great for doing a couple of practice test runs to make sure that you are getting your positioning and placement right. Okay, so there is our sentiment strip. Now, I have already gone ahead and stamped and die cut some other pieces. So I'll just bring in the stamp set for a second so you can see what I did. So I stamped the fern and this sort of sprig, I don't know what that is, weeds, wildflowers, whatever, in soft succulent ink. Okay, and then these flowers, I really only wanted this blossom. I stamped them in Blushing Bride. Okay, die cut them out. Again, I cut them from little bitty scraps, so I only really got the blossoms, which is all I wanted anyway. And then I have some of the vines cut from this dark sort of brushed nickel look from the silver, it's the Silver Specialty Foils. Okay, so those are all my bits and pieces. I have a little bit of Evening Evergreen window pane ribbon here. So I'm actually going to put that onto my base. And what's going to happen is it's just going to peek out a little bit from underneath my sentiment. Did I remember? Oh, I did. Okay. I thought for a minute that I had forgotten to include the roll of ribbon so that I could tie a bow, but I didn't. All right. So this is going to go on, I don't know, 1.5 inches maybe up from the bottom. So I'm just going to run a little bit of seal across here just because I want my ribbon to stick flat. I don't want it to kind of flop around. So again, I'm going to use my grid paper to get this straight. So let's just get that nice and straight on my grid paper and then we just lay it across. Okay, there's a little bit of seal up here, but that's okay because that's going to cover it. Okay. All right, I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to trim my tails a little bit. This is just a bit of scrap ribbon I had kicking around. So it's a little bit long for what we need. I'm going to add a glue dot to each end of my ribbon here, not my thumb. That one just stuck to my thumb. There we go. Let's try that again. Wrap that around. We're going to do the same thing on the other end. Okay, so that just gives us a nice, neat, tidy edge here. All right, so I could cut it off, but then I'm going to have like a frayed end on the ribbon and that isn't so pretty. Okay, now before we put our other pieces on, we're actually going to mat this on a piece of Blushing Bride. Okay, so this is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And I think I forgot to mention the size of this piece before I embossed it. It was 4 by 5 1/4. Okay, the embossing does cause your cardstock to shrink just a little bit, especially the 3D folders. Because they etch the images so deeply, the cardstock does shrink a teeny bit, but it should be pretty close still to 4 by 5 1/4. So I'm going to go ahead and layer this onto my mat. That's not straight. Let's see if we can get that a little straighter. That's better. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and add all of our pieces. So we are going to glue our sentiment strip on first, and then we are going to arrange all of our greenery and florals. Okay, so this again is going to get glued flat. I'm not popping up my sentiment. I know, shocking for those that watch me regularly. It's all right, I'm okay. I just decided not to pop up the sentiment on this one. So the nice thing about this ribbon, because it's kind of a grid pattern, I can use that line on the ribbon to make sure I get my sentiment on straight. Okay. And then it's really just a matter of arranging all of my pieces. Now I am going to pop up my fern, okay, but we're going to put that on last. So this guy's going to go on first. I'm going to add just a little hint of seal and stick that on right about there. Okay, these little vines are going to sort of tuck in behind. Now I need to add a little bit of glue here. So we're just going to add a little titch of, little dab. Is a titch even a measurement? I don't know. In my mind it is. Little titch of glue. And I'm going to trim these a bit shorter. So this one's going to kind of tuck in here. Like that. And then this one is going to be my longest, so it's going to be kind of coming up from behind. So again, we'll just add a couple little dibby dabs of glue. There's another measurement for you, a dibby dab. All right. Okay, you're good, Louise. Yes, flower arranging is my thing, apparently. I do enjoy doing it. It's fun to arrange paper flowers. I don't know how we do with real ones, but the paper ones are fun. And one more, a little bit of glue on this guy. And we're going to slide him in behind here. So we have our sort of 3 tall feature pieces in the background. Okay, and then these little blossoms, one of them is going to tuck in behind my sentiment strip. So we're just going to add a little bit of liquid glue so we can tuck that in easily. So just kind of peel that up a bit, tuck it in there. Okay, this one is actually going to tuck in underneath at the bottom. So kind of there, I'm going to trim off some of this messiness so it's easier to tuck in there. And for this one, I'm actually going to use some seal just because it's going to be up against the ribbon. So I want to make sure that it stays. So that one can go there. I'm going to go ahead and add my fern, and then I'm going to add my last flower. So this guy is going to get popped. A couple of dimensionals. Whoops. Let's make sure we put the dimensionals on here so that we end up with them exactly where we want them. We don't want to put dimensionals too high. So we're going to get our backings off of there. Look I got cat hair. Our cats are shedding like crazy, and they are needy as all get out lately. My goodness, this weekend I had Stella down here like nonstop. She was just a royal pain, but she has now decided that my chair where I sit to do my videos has become her spot. So if I can like get her to park it on the chair, she'll go to sleep and she'll be quiet and leave me alone. Otherwise, she's a royal pain. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put this onto our card base before we add our bow. So this is a thick basic white card base. It's 4 1/4 by 11 inches, scored in the middle at 5 1/2. So we will fold that in half along our score line. I do like using thick basic white for my card bases. It's just got a little bit extra firmness so that my cards stay standing up. It doesn't feel quite as flimsy as the basic white when it's a card base. Basic white is great for layering. It's a little bit lighter weight, but for card bases, I like to use the thick. So we're going to go ahead and layer that. Okay, and then our last couple of touches is to tie a bow with this adorable ribbon. So we're going to make our bunny ears. Cross left over right, bring it around and through, and then we tease out our pretty bow. So I'm just going to play with the size of my loops. You want to keep pulling your loops tight as you do this, okay? That's kind of the secret to getting a nice tight knot in your bow. We'll trim our ends, and then we're going to add a glue dot to the back of the knot. Hi, Linda. You just woke up. I actually came home and had a nap too in the hopes of getting rid of this headache. It didn't work, but it sure was nice to crash for half an hour on the couch. All right, and then we're going to add some of these beautiful in color opals. So these are new embellishments in the annual catalog. And they come in each of last year's in colors. We've got Evening Evergreen, Soft Succulent, Fresh Freesia. There's more. I cut them off to fit in my containers, but you get the idea. So we're gonna slide. Actually, you know what? I think I'm gonna tuck this one down here. I like it better off the flower. And then, so they're large and small. So I always like to mix up the sizes. Just makes, again, more visually interesting. There we go. There is our finished card. Now on the inside of this one, I just did a little bit more stamping with the same images I used on the front, just to decorate a little bit. You could certainly put a congratulations sentiment on the inside and turn that into a very pretty wedding card. Okay, so that is number 1. Let's get rid of all of our bits and pieces here, and we'll bring in number 2. So number 2 is a similar color scheme, but I brought in the Crumb Cake for my card base, and I really like sort of that sort of earthy, kind of grounded feel that it gives. So I brought in my Wreath die cut for this one because I wanted to showcase that. It is fabulous. So to start, we have yet another embossed panel. Now this one is embossed using the Fern embossing folder. So this one is the one that's typically, I think it's actually showcased as part of this suite in the catalog. It again is a 3D folder. Beautiful, deeply etched fern images. Works with so many stamp sets and die sets that we have in the catalog. Fantastic for masculine cards, especially. Also works for like tropical kind of theme because these could come off as palm fronds as well. So that is our background. Again, it's 4 by 5 1/4. And then I have one of these beautiful die cut wreaths. So this is actually die cut using the coordinating Pretty Prints DSP. So I showed you the Sun Prints paper, and I mentioned that if you're not into the blues and grays, that there is another pack that has other colors. So the Pretty Prints DSP has the same patterns as Sun Prints, but it has Evening Evergreen, Soft Succulent, Calypso Coral, Bermuda Bay, Blackberry Bliss. So it's got a different set of colors, a different color palette. So I have die cut this with some adhesive sheets on the back. Okay, it just makes adhering this a whole lot quicker and easier. Now, because this is DSP, I'm going to be really gentle as I'm peeling this off so I don't tear my paper. So we're just going to gently pull off our backing here. Now, you certainly can adhere this without. There is enough real estate on this wreath to be able to adhere it without the adhesive sheets, but they just make it so much quicker and easier. So I'm going to put this on, not quite in the middle, a little bit above middle. And I really love like these sort of, fern leaves. I kind of want them to be visible. So we're going to kind of put this on right about there. Okay, and I'm just going to gently burnish that. Then I'm going to take and flip my panel over, and I'm going to trim off the excess wreath because I don't need that bit that's kind of hanging off the end. So we're just going to get rid of that. Okay, just make sure that's nice and secure. So that is our background. Isn't that just so pretty? I love that, that wreath image. Okay, so then once again, I have gone ahead and stamped and die cut my images. So I have here, again, there's that sort of wildflower or weed, whatever you want to call it. And then these are the full flower images. Now you'll notice that they're two-tone stamping. I did that by using my Stampin' Up markers. So Stampin' Up markers, I just want to make it clear, these are not Stampin' Blends, okay? Stampin' Up markers are round and they have water-based ink in them, okay? However, similar to our Stampin' Blends, they have a brush tip and they have a bullet tip. Okay, so two different tips. The bullet tip is really not for inking your stamps because it is more for writing. Okay, the brush tip is the one that you're going to use. And so I inked up my stamps. Here, I'll show you real quick on one. I'll do the flower for a quick sec. So when you are inking up your stamp, you want to use the side of your brush tip. Okay, don't use the end. It'll destroy your brush tip over time. So I'm kind of just on the side and inking the stem of my flower. And then I'm going to come in with my Blushing Bride. So I use Soft Succulent on the stem. And then I'm going to come in with my Blushing Bride. And I don't actually have any white cardstock handy, so I'm just going to stamp on my grid paper. I'll do it over here so you can actually see the color. So when you stamp, you get the two-tone stamping. Okay, now if it's a larger image that has taken you a while to ink, you may want to kind of huff on it to just re-moisten the ink before you stamp. But for a small image, it's not really necessary. But that's how I inked my stamps to get these multicolored images. Okay. All right. So those are my bits and pieces. We have that gorgeous label. So this is die cut from white cardstock. And we are going to go ahead and stamp our sentiment. So once again, we're going to stamp it in the Evening Evergreen. So we'll just set that aside. And again, I have to be very careful because I have a very juicy ink pad, freshly re-inked. I used this for a couple of swaps this weekend, so I re-inked it afterwards because it was very dry. And now it's very not dry. So we're going to go ahead and stamp this. I'm going to hope this is somewhat straight. That's not too bad. And I purposely stamped it a little bit towards the left because I want to have room for my little flower on the right side. Okay. And once again, we're just going to do a little bit of floral arranging. Sorry, Louise, but here we go. Round two. So what I did is I actually trimmed off the stems on these guys because I didn't want them to kind of get in the way. So we're going to kind of do one this way and one this way, kind of in a very wide V. And for this, I don't actually need to use my liquid, well, I might use a little bit of liquid glue on the top. I was going to say I could just put seal down, but we'll do it this way. Not quite as quick, but still effective. So we're going to add those. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and add our flowers. Now, this one is actually, we're going to see most of this flower. We'll see a little bit of the stem because our label is going to kind of come across the middle of that. Okay, so it's going to go probably right about there. Okay, now I am going to stick this actually to the back of my label so that it pops up a bit. So we're going to add a little bit of seal to the back of our label, and that one's going to go right about there, I think. Yep, that works. Our second one is going to come down below, and we're really only going to see the flower. So I'm going to trim this part off because we don't really need that. So this guy is going to peek out from down here. Okay, and then this last one we're actually going to apply with a little bit of liquid glue to the front of the label. So we'll put a little bit here, a little bit on the stem, and we're just going to layer that on the front of the label like that. Isn't that pretty? I just think that's such a pretty look with the flowers around the label like that. Okay, now before we put this down, we're going to add our sort of twine. I'm going to show you where that came from. So this ribbon is from this. It doesn't come like this. It's not a fringe. It is actually from the Abigail Rose ribbon pack. It's the natural look ribbon, I think it's called. It's about 7/8 inches wide. But I cut this length quite a while ago, and I've been pulling threads from it for ages to be able to add those kinds of elements to my projects. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take and apply some seal, kind of where my label's going to go. Okay, and then I still have just a little bit here. So what I did is I cut the finished edge off along the length of the ribbon. Okay, and then I have been, like I said, for quite a while now. Let me see, I think I started it on this end. There we go. Been pulling threads out of it. So we're going to pull a few threads out. And as you get closer to the end, it gets a little bit harder because you got to pull them through all of this fringe. But we're just going to pull them out. Now the goal when you're doing this is to try to keep those little threads as you're doing it straight. They are a little bit unwieldy because they're very fine once you pull them out. So we're just going to pull this. Are these guys coming with me? I think they are. There we go. That's a little easier. So you could trim this fringe part off so to make this pulling them out easier. The first few are super easy to pull, but as I said, as you get farther in, you have to work at it a little bit. So we're just going to pull these guys out. This one's coming out, no problem. Let's get that one out, and then we'll work on these guys. Maybe we'll go one at a time. That'll work. There we go. Okay, so that one's pretty much done, that bit of ribbon. But then I'm going to take my ends, just make sure I have them kind of all together. So I have 4 threads here, 4 strands. And I'm going to kind of create a very loose bow shape. Okay, so I'm going to start here. I'm going to make a loop. I'm going to crisscross it, and then I'm going to make another loop. And then I'm going to have it come out. Actually, no, let's have this come down the bottom. There we go, that's better. Okay, so it's a very, very loose bow shape. And what's going to happen when I glue this on, we're just going to see those loops kind of in behind our label. And it just brings in ever so slightly that crumb cake that we're going to use for our card base. Okay, so it's just going to kind of sit like that. So we're going to add our dimensionals to the back of our label here. So I want to make sure I get dimensionals behind the flowers as well as the label. So this is probably way more than any of you would ever use on a piece this size, but I just want to make sure everything stays put. So we're going to get rid of our backings. Yes, everybody is really quiet today. Maybe you're bored. Maybe you don't like my projects. That's probably it. You've probably been there, done that. You're sick of watching me arrange flowers. All right, there we go. Okay, now I'm just going to trim the tails on these threads here a little bit, just so that they're not quite so long. I'll get rid of those. Those ones I'll just spread out a bit, and I think they'll be okay. There we go. Isn't that pretty? Just love that little arrangement there. So then we're going to layer this again on a piece of Blushing Bride. So same dimensions as the last card, 4 1/4 by 5 3/8. And then we are going to layer that just like that. So let's add a bit of seal. And we'll stick this down. pop that on. Okay, and it's pretty like that. I was very tempted to put it onto white cardstock, but then when I tried it with the Crumb Cake, it just made it pop. I just love it. So this is a Crumb Cake card base. Again, same dimensions as the last card, 4 1/4 by 11 inches, scored in the middle at 5 1/2. So we're going to crisp that up. Now, if you are someone who loves the blue and white combination, blue and white and gray, you could totally recreate both of these cards with the color scheme that's in the DSP, right? I just wanted to switch it up a little bit, do something a little bit softer to show the versatility of this set. So let's pop this on once again. Okay, and then this time we're going to add, this is a little sneak peek of an upcoming product in the Holiday Mini. These are the Festive Pearls collection. So you actually get 4 different colors of pearls. We've got gold, silver, soft succulent, and red. So I'm going to use the soft succulent, and they just, oh, they work so beautifully with this. And again, I thought this would make a beautiful bridal shower thank you card. If you have someone you know who's getting married, it is a great gift to give handmade thank you cards to the bride. Even better if at the shower you have everybody write their addresses on the envelopes. It makes it so much quicker and easier. But there you go. Now let me show you quick what I did on the inside of this one. I stamped some more of the images that I used on the front, and it leaves lots of space for writing. Okay, so that is project number 2. And now we're going to get to my very favorite. This one I had so much fun with. So, you ready for a new fun fold? I just realized I forgot my navy ink. So I got to grab my navy ink pad. I'll leave you hanging for a couple seconds. All right, so here we go. So this fun fold I have seen floating around on blogs and YouTube channels out of the UK. And all of them make a much larger card. So the one that I had seen that really caught my eye was 5 by 7. And I wanted to, again, do a fun fold that would fit in our standard envelopes. Okay. So I spent some time on the weekend playing around and came up with this card. So it lies flat. Okay. It's standard 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. But then it pops up and you get this fantastic pop out effect. It's like a tiered, almost like steps. And it's just such a great fun fold. So I'm going to show you how to make this. It is way easier than it looks. It looks super complex, really not. And this fold is fantastic to use with DSP that's kind of panoramic, that has like a large scene that kind of runs across. So this is where I used that pattern from the Sun Prints pack that has sort of that large 12 by 12 image. I cut the section off the bottom. And you'll see that the images continue across the 5 panels. So I'll show you how to do that. Okay. All right. So here we go. So to start, we have our card base. Now I should mention that I have used regular basic white. I did not use thick for this. I know I just mentioned I like thick basic white for card bases. However, for this, because there's so many layers and so much scoring and folding and whatnot, it's going to be too bulky if you use thick basic white. So use regular white. Our regular color cardstock is okay as well, but the thick basic white is just a little bit too much. Okay, so we are starting. I've got my cheat sheet here to make sure I tell you the right measurements. I will put all of these in the video description, and I'm also going to put the measurements on my blog. It will post tomorrow. Okay. All right, so we are starting with a piece of basic white cardstock. It's 4 1/4 by 8 inches. I should turn it this way. 4 1/4 by 8. Okay, and then it is scored at 5 1/2 and 6 3/4. Okay, so you can see the score lines there. So I'm going to fold that 5 1/2 inch score line in a valley. So just like I was folding a regular card base. Okay, key to success with this fold is lots of burnishing. Okay. And then that 6 3/4 inch score line, I'm going to fold back on itself. So we're making just a basic Z fold, right? So we just want to make sure our edges line up. We want this to be a nice, crisp, square card. So again, we're going to burnish that really well. So that is our base. That's sort of our first step. Okay, this first step here. Okay. All right. Next, I have 4 squares, and these are our squares. And I'll give you all the dimensions in just one sec. I'm just going to lay them all out here. Okay, so this one is 3 3/4 square. This one is 3 1/4 square. This one is 2 3/4, and this is 2 1/4. Okay, so you can see they kind of go in descending sizes. So we're going to work from largest to smallest. I'm just going to get these guys out of the way for a minute. So this larger square, I have scored at 1 inch, 2 1/4, and 3 1/4. Okay, so this square is 3 3/4. I've scored at 1, 2 1/4, and 3 1/4. Okay, so I'm folding all these score lines. They are all going to be mountains. So mountain, mountain, mountain. Again, I want to make sure when I'm folding that I get my edges matched up, that my lines are nice and straight, and I burnish really well. Okay, so there's one mountain. I'm going to fold this one. Let's make sure that's nice and straight. And the last one is another mountain. Again, nice and straight. Okay, so this is going to become our next step. So I'm going to show you where we're going to apply our adhesive. So for all of these layers, we are going to apply adhesive to the 2 outside sections. So we're going to put adhesive here and here. I'm using Stampin' Seal. You're going to want something strong. The liquid glue will work. It just takes a little bit longer for it to set up, so you have to wait a little bit in between stages. But that's not a big deal. Okay. I've also made sure that I put my adhesive fairly close to my folds here. Okay, so I've got adhesive here and adhesive here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this back. Okay, so there's my little strip with my adhesive. I'm folding that second panel in. And what I'm going to do is lay this down on my card front. I just want to make sure that I'm kind of centered, or I am centered, top and bottom. I'm going to put the edge of this in flush with that fold. Okay, just like that. And then I'm going to close my card and lay it flat. Burnish well. Okay, and then when I pull it back, there's my next step. Isn't that cool? All right, next square is 3 1/4. So all of the rest of these, it's the same basic procedure. Okay, so this is a 3 1/4 inch square. It is scored at 3/4 inch, 2 inches, sorry, 2 inches there, and 2 3/4. So 3/4, 2 inches, and 2 3/4. Again, this will all be in the description afterwards, so don't feel like you have to write them all down madly. Okay, and again, all mountain folds as we go across here. And you just want to make sure you get this nice and straight. This is the key to success. So nice, straight, even edges. So just take the time when you're folding to make sure you have that all nice and straight. Okay, so same deal. We're going to apply adhesive on our 2 outermost sections on each side. So there's 1 and 2. Okay, and just like last time, I'm going to fold this piece in, okay, and this time I'm going to line this up against the next step. Now, you want to be careful when you're pushing this in against your section here, that you're not sliding it in underneath. If you didn't put your adhesive up close enough to the folds, it will be possible to slide this in underneath. You don't want to do that, okay? So you just want to make sure it's up nice and close, okay, sort of touching, but you don't want to push it under. All right, and then again, I'm centering this top to bottom, and I'm going to squish it down and burnish, and there's my next stage. Isn't that cool? Love it. All right, carrying on. Next one is 2 3/4 inch square, and I have scored at 1/2 inch. Let me go this way. 1/2 inch, 1 3/4, and 2 1/4. Okay, so same deal. Mountain folds all the way across, taking the time to make sure they're nice and straight. So 1 and 2 and 3. Okay, so there we go. Thanks, Jill. I'm glad you like this fold. I am like now addicted to this fold. I've made a bunch more. Once you figure something out, you just want to keep making it, right? Okay, so same deal. We're going to apply adhesive to our 2 outermost sections. Okay, you'll notice that these sections are getting smaller as we go. This one's staying consistent, but this one is getting smaller. That's because our stages are getting smaller, right? So same thing, we're going to fold this side in. We're going to put this in, again, butt it up to it, but not under it. Centered, and stick it flat. And, whoops, that one did not stick. Let's try that again. Why did that not stick? Make sure that's stuck. There we go, that's better. Okay, and then the last one, this is the hardest one because here we only have a 1/4 inch to apply our adhesive to. So for this section only, I'm actually going to use liquid glue just so that I have a little bit more control. So again, we're going to fold this nice and straight and even. That is not straight. There we go. I have a cat at my door meowing at me. Not sure if you can hear it. It is Stella. Of course it's Stella. It's always Stella. And then we're going to pull this one in again, nice and straight. Okay. So along this one, I can put some seal. I still have a nice 1/2 inch section there. But here, this very narrow 1/4 inch section, I'm just going to use a little bit of liquid glue just to make it easier. Okay. But same thing. I'm going to fold that inwards. We're going to tuck this in flush against our last stage there. And we're going to just make sure, you just want to make sure this is straight, okay, as you're putting this on. And stick her down. Okay, now I'm going to wait just a minute for that glue to set up before I try to open it. But that gives you your flattened card. There it is. Isn't that cool? So awesome. I know I've said isn't that cool a million times, but I just love this fold. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to do your DSP so you get a continuous image across all 5 sections here. Okay, so this is a piece that I've cut again from the Sun Prints paper. It is 4 1/8 by 5 5/8. Okay, so 4 1/8 by 5 5/8. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to bring in my trimmer. And I'm going to set this aside while it dries there. And we are going to start by cutting 1 1/8 strips from this. We're going to end up with 5 1 1/8 strips. Okay. I like to use, when I'm cutting narrow bits, I like to use my right hand ruler here. So there's 1 inch, there's 1 1/8. Okay. And so I'm just going to cut, there's 1. Now ideally we want to keep these in order because it makes it easier afterwards. Okay. And 2. And whoopsie, don't move. 3. And this one should center at 1 1/8 on either side if I haven't screwed up. And there's our last one. Okay. So now this is going to be our leftmost panel. Okay, so this one we don't have to do anything to. We can go ahead and glue this on. Now you may be thinking, why didn't she glue these on before she put all of these, this whole card base together? I've tried it both ways. You can do that if you are using like a random pattern DSP that you're not going to try to match up. If you are wanting to match a pattern, it is much easier to do so after you have the card together. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and glue this down on our first panel, and that's going to kind of give us our reference point as we build the rest of the card. So I'm using just a bit of liquid glue, and I just have a narrow 1/16 of an inch border. I like that when I'm wanting to do a continuous pattern so that the border doesn't really interrupt the pattern too much. Okay, so there is my first piece. Now let's see how this is going to stand up. Come on. I got my liquid glue. There we go. Okay, so now we're standing up. There's our staircase. Okay, all right, so the next one, we need to be a little bit shorter. So what we're going to do is take our next piece. So this is the next piece in our pattern, right, that we cut. And we're going to cut 1/4 of an inch off from the top and bottom. So this end and this end. So I'm going to bring back my trimmer. And we're going to cut off 1/4 inch. So 1/4 inch is right here. Again, I'm looking at my right hand ruler. Okay, and then we're going to flip it around and cut 1/4 inch off the other end as well. Okay, and then that piece, when I go to glue it on, you're going to see that my image is continuous. Oh, shoot, is that the wrong one? Nope. Okay, I thought for a minute that I got the wrong. Nope, that's right. Is it? Did I get these in the wrong order? It looks like I did. I think this one goes here. Yep, that's okay. We can save it. Okay, we're going to cut 1/4 inch off this one. Whew, that was close. Almost screwed it up. Okay, 1/4 inch and 1/4 inch. We're okay. Don't worry. It's all good. Okay, so we're going to glue this one on. I had the wrong piece. That one's going to go on there. Okay, this one is going to continue here. You're going to see how that continues there, but we're going to cut another 1/4 inch off. Okay, so this piece, the third piece, you would normally cut 1/2 inch off. but because we had already cut a quarter, we're going to cut another quarter. But let's glue this one on first. That was close. We almost had a disaster on live video. Wouldn't be the first time, won't be the last. Okay, let's get this centered. So you can see now I can kind of match up my image so that it looks continuous as I go across here. Okay. All right, so where was my piece? Is this it? Yes, it is. So we're going to cut another 1/4 inch off. Again, if we're working from the full piece, you'd be cutting a 1/2 inch off of either end. Okay. But again, because I have my little oopsie, we're going to save it by cutting off just a 1/4 here. Okay. So this one is going to go on here, just like that. Again, we're going to add a little bit of glue. Yeah, I saved it, you guys. Doesn't always happen that easily, but I saved it. There we go. Okay, now again, if you're doing a random pattern, does not matter. When I post my instructions, I will post both. So I'll post the lengths or the sizes of each of these strips for if you're doing random. But then I will also post the size of that full sheet that you're cutting the strips off of to do the continuous image. Okay. All right. This next one is going to go on here. Okay. And we're going to cut 3/4 of an inch off each end. So 3/4 of an inch there and 3/4 of an inch here. Make sure that's straight. Okay. And then that one is going to get glued on here. Okay. Again, continuous image. So we'll add that one. And again, you just kind of want to take your time and look at your image and make sure that it looks continuous. So you're lining up your images. And I'm just going to press this flat and burnish it a little bit. You just want to make sure that it doesn't move as you're burnishing. Okay, and then this last little guy, we're going to cut a full inch off either end. Now you may be thinking that's really wasteful. You're cutting all those bits off your DSP. But it is the best and easiest way to end up with a continuous image across all 5 panels. Okay. All right. So there we go. We'll get rid of that. Get this out of the way. And a little bit more glue. And we will pop this on. Just like that. And again, do you see how I can match up my stem here? Now, if I had done the DSP earlier, it would have been harder to match up. Okay. All right, so isn't that pretty? Now, this is so pretty, I actually didn't want to cover it up at all. I just think that that's a really cool look, having the image sort of continue across and it kind of fades into the distance because the stages get smaller. I just really love that look. But then I thought, okay, we have to put a sentiment. We got to do something on this card. So we have some images, again, stamped and die cut from the stamp set. So these are stamped in navy ink on white cardstock. And then I pulled in a die from the Forever Greenery die set. So these dies coordinate perfectly with this suite. So if you have this these dies in the stamp set, this is a great sort of complement to it, and you can do amazing things with it. So we're going to start by gluing this piece down. I'm actually going to trim the stem off of this because I don't want to see it. So the most important part, obviously, when we're gluing this is that we're only going to glue it to this panel here, okay? Because if we glue this flat, it's not going to pop out, right? We're not going to be able to do the pop-up because this is going to be stuck flat. So we just want to be careful. And so I'm going to just, again, think about, so we're applying glue to this side. So we'll just put a couple there. And we're going to go ahead and stick this down at a bit of an angle, just like that. Okay. We'll just give that a sec to set up. And then we're going to add this. I don't know what this is, what kind of plant this is, but it is gorgeous. So once again, we're going to glue just this section to the front, okay, to that first sort of stage. I think we can put this little guy on here too. So I'm going to put it at a bit of an angle, and we're going to just glue that flat. Okay, you'll notice I'm not popping anything up here. That's just because this already has a fair bit of bulk, and I want to be able to get it into a standard envelope, so I'm not doing a whole lot of dimensionaling here. Get lots of dimension just in the card itself. Then we're going to go ahead and add a fern, kind of coming up in behind. Now, actually, before we do that, let's do our sentiment. So I'm going to show you a fun little trick with this label die. So these are just 2 of the same die. Okay, I've got the white and the silver. But if you look closely here, you'll see I have them layered. Well, there's only one label in the stamp set. So I'm going to show you a little trick to get a layered look with this. Okay, so I'm going to bring in my navy ink and I'm going to give this a quick stamp off to get rid of any evergreen that's here. Thankfully, they're both dark colors, so they should be okay. So we're just going to ink that up, and I'm going to stamp this again a little bit towards the left because I want to stamp my fern here. So I'm going to bring in my fern image, wherever it is. Did I not mount it? I might have put it back in the case. Let's grab it real quick. There it is. Okay, let's just grab, we're going to get rid of our flower, and we're going to add our fern. Uh-oh, I pulled my whole label off. You ever done that? That's a first. Our cling stamps are so sticky, I just pulled the whole label off. That'll require a little bit of repair work. That's okay. This is going to be a little bit large, but I only really need just the tip of this fern. So I'm going to ink this up. I'm going to stamp it off 2 times. I really want this to be quite faint. And I'm just going to add just that little hint of the fern there. Okay. All right. Now comes the fun part. I'm going to take this label. I'm going to bring in my scissors, and this label has a beautiful embossed pattern around the edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut along that embossed line to make this label just ever so slightly smaller, so that when I layer it on my silver label, I'm going to see a little bit of a silver border all the way around. So I'm just kind of using that embossed line as a guide. Just taking my time and cutting all the way around the circle, or the label, not the circle. Well, there's kind of a circle on the label, but you know what I mean. So let's just trim this and right across and around. Can you hear the stomping that's going on upstairs? I don't know what the heck's happening in my house, but it sounds like there's a herd of elephants up there. I only have one 15-year-old living here and, you know, a 50-something-year-old husband. So I don't know what's going on, but it's loud. Okay, so now when I go to layer this, dun, 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 there we have a pretty silver border all the way around. Isn't that cool? Now this one I need to trim just a little bit more. I didn't cut this quite close enough so that I see a little bit more silver. Less is more with this, right? You can always come back and trim off more to get the look that you're going for. There we go. That's better. Okay, so we're going to add a little bit of seal, and I'm only using seal here because liquid glue takes a bit of time to set up on foil, and I'm not patient. So we are going to go ahead and layer that. Just like that. Okay, so then we have our cute little border peeking out. And then I'm going to actually add a little silver vine and a fern to the back of my label. Okay, so they're going to kind of be hanging out on the back of my label. So I'm going to add, I'm actually not going to add, actually I could put a little bit of seal here because my fern will cover it. I'm going to trim my vine off a little bit. So we're going to add this little bit here. And then we're going to add our fern sort of peeking out here. And then when we go to glue this on, we're going to glue this to this front panel. Okay, so it lays across. You could also, if you wanted to, glue it in behind, but no, that's not going to work because you're not going to see your sentiment. So on top is best. So again, I'm going to add just a little bit of seal on the one end of my label. And we're going to pop that on, hopefully straight. Right about there. Okay, and then when it pops out, we kind of have the sentiment standing out like that. Now the last little touch is to add just a little silver bow. So I'm going to bring in some of our silver cord and tie a wee bow and play with my loops. I want this to be relatively small. I don't want a huge bow here. We'll get rid of our tails. And then this is going to go on with a little glue booger. So I'm going to take a glue dot. I'm going to roll it into like a little booger of glue, and then we're going to just press the knot. Now when I'm doing this, I like to kind of curl the ends of my bow so that I kind of get them, this cord can be a little bit unruly, so by sticking it down so that the ends kind of go where I want them to, it makes me a little bit easier to corral it. Okay, Now, one thing I will mention, this is not quite done, okay? Do you see how this is now top heavy and it wants to fall forward? Okay, that's because we've added that extra weight of those elements. So what we're going to do is add a panel on the back to write our message on. So I'm not going to take the time to actually adhere the white piece for now, but what we would do is stamp our images, right? I just stamped some more of the images that we used on the front. There's that awesome spatter. In navy ink, okay, this piece is cut to 4 by 5 1/4 inches. This piece is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. You would layer them like this, and then they get adhered to the back of your card. So I'll go ahead and stick down the navy layer, and then I will stamp my white layer and add it later, just in the interest of time. Now, just one sort of hot tip here, you may want to write with something underneath this card, just because you have a whole lot going on in the front, right? So when you're trying to write, having this extra layer actually really helps. It makes it a little bit smoother. If you were to try to write just on the back of the card, it would be a little bit tricky. Okay, so just by adding that one extra piece, now it doesn't want to fall forward, right? So just a little bit of counterweight, and it stays standing up really nicely. Okay, so that is that. Let me pull in all 3 cards again. So we've got our fun fold, we've got our thank you, and we've got our best wishes. Let's put them that way. There you go. All right, I hope you like these. This fun fold, I'll just warn you, it's a little bit addictive. It's really fun, and you're just gonna want to make it with all the things. So have fun with it. And I will post again all of the measurements and everything in the video description. It'll be on my YouTube channel and here on Facebook, and then I will also post all the measurements on my blog, which we'll post tomorrow. Okay? All right, everyone, have a fantastic evening, a great rest of the week, and I will see you next week for another episode of Tuesday Live at 5. Bye for now.